Good morning and welcome back. We had quite the day yesterday and quite an interesting way to close it with that very insightful piece by Larry Wright. And we have quite the day today, and we're going to start off with a running start. It's my pleasure to introduce opening remarks by Christopher Raia. Chris Raia is the Assistant Director in charge of the New York office of the FBI. Most offices across 55 field offices in the United States have a special agent in charge. That's the way the FBI works. But 3 of them, New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, because of the depth of the complexity of those cities and the violations that the FBI looks at, are headed by assistant directors of the FBI. And Chris Raia is one of them. He started in the FBI in 2003, far from the concrete canyons of the great city here in the Texas City RA, where I'm pretty sure he wore cowboy boots. But being the ADIC of the New York office of the FBI, next to being the director, is probably the most complex job in the Bureau. It is where you face violent crime, highly organized crime groups, with Wall Street, the most complex financial crimes, espionage, counterintelligence, intelligence, and of course, the thing that brings us to this room again and again, counterterrorism, being in charge from the FBI standpoint of security for the world's most complex, largest, and most threatened city. So, no pressure. Let me give you Chris Raia.
All right, thank you, John, for that kind introduction. As you all heard, I am what I guess I would consider an outsider, as I've never spent one day up until 6 months ago in the New York division. So it has been a whirlwind of 6 months here in New York, and it's been the greatest honor of my career to serve the city, to serve our new director, and to serve our new deputy director. Unlike many of you, I was not here in New York City during 9/11. However, like the millions of others across the country, I watched what transpired right in this very location from a Coast Guard cutter in Miami Beach, Florida. As we got recalled to conduct a mission that none of us were really trained for at the time, port security operations, I remember being overcome by a myriad of emotions. I was sad, I was anxious, I was scared, I was angry. But most of all, I was motivated to do anything I could do to protect the country at the time. When I first reported here 6 months ago, on a Sunday afternoon, on my own, I walked over to the reflection pools. And all those emotions came running back. I started thinking about everything that happened in that very spot on 9/11. And was literally brought to tears sitting on that bench by the reflection pools all by myself. This is my first experience in New York City during this emotional week. For me, this is very surreal. Taking part in the various ceremonies this week, interacting with the 9/11 families, and of course, speaking at events like this. As I processed all these emotions again this week, the same emotions that I had 24 years ago aboard that Coast Guard cutter, the one emotion that came rising back to me, rising to the top, was motivation. I am motivated now, more than ever, to work as hard as I possibly can alongside NYPD and our state, local, and federal partners to ensure that something like this never happens again. You have my word as your ADIC, as your head of the FBI office here in New York. I will do everything in my power to protect this city from another attack. So Ali and the rest of the Soufan group, I cannot tell you how honored and humbled I am here today. And just thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak about the counterterrorism landscape today. It's no secret, our mission statement for a long time now has been very simple. Not easy, but simple. To protect the American people and uphold the Constitution of the United States. We work to achieve this mission by focusing on 4 main priorities that were just released by our new director and deputy director. Crushing violent crime, defending the homeland, rebuilding public trust, and fierce organizational accountability. Addressing violent crime in our communities is probably receiving a lot more attention than you've seen before from the FBI. But rest assured, our bread and butter remains and will remain for the foreseeable future, for as long as I'm here and for years past I'm here, is going to be national security. And nothing more important than protecting, disrupting, deterring, and preventing terrorist attacks. While I've only been in New York for 6 months, I've quickly come to learn there's no other city in the world like New York. There are so many great things to do. The people are great. But the one thing that kind of looms in the back of my head is this still is and will remain the biggest terrorism target in the world. It was true in '93, it was true in '01, and it's true in 2025. We, the FBI, and the entire law enforcement community cannot afford to relax in our efforts defending the city from a terrorist attack. We, as many of you know from your own experience, in the CT space, this is a no-fail mission. You know, on my criminal side of things, drugs get in the country all the time. Violent crime, although tragic, still happens all the time. But what happens when we seize 100 kilos of cocaine or we take 30 members of gangs off the streets? We have a big press conference and everybody high-fives and congratulates each other. We don't talk about all the fails that happen in that space. We simply cannot fail in this space because the one time we do fail, that makes the news, not the congratulatory press conference that you see on the criminal side. The threat space as law enforcement that we operate in, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, is ever-changing and increasingly challenging. The threats we face are complex and severe. They're dynamic and ever evolving. There remains a clear intent, still, from foreign terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda, and yes, Al-Qaeda is still a thing. They're beginning to reconstitute, so just add that to the other things we have to worry about, and ISIS to attack the United States in our interests. We also now have to worry about Hamas. Previously in the FBI, although we did have Hamas cases, previously in the FBI, they were largely financial, and we didn't have to worry about them attacking the homeland. Now, I can't tell you how many investigations I've seen related to violence or something related to terrorism here in the homeland from Hamas. So again, add that to another issue we have to worry about. In my 22 years, I've not seen all these threats elevated at once, as much as it is today. When you have these jobs, and if you work counterterrorism long enough, you probably get this question a lot. What keeps you up at night, Chris? I will tell you what keeps me up at night probably the most here, and kept me up at night at most when I was in Houston and when I was DAD, a counterterrorism division, is the threat posed by what we call homegrown violent extremists, or lone actors, which I know you all know. Small cells who often look to attack soft, familiar targets with easily acquired weapons, much like we saw in the heart-wrenching New Year's Day attack in New Orleans by Shamsa Jabbar. The aftermath of New Orleans, which I experienced firsthand as I was deployed out there to help out shortly after the attack happened. Right here in New York, just last year, the NYJTTF, the world-renowned NYJTTF, there isn't one like it across the country or in the world, and I've been to several different field offices and entities in the Bureau, and there is nothing more robust, stronger, or more capable than this JTTF right here, where it was born out of. Last year, with our international partners, we arrested a subject named Muhammad Khan. He was a Pakistani national living in Canada after he attempted to travel to New York City with the intent of carrying out a mass shooting right here at a Jewish center in Brooklyn on or about the anniversary of October 7th last year. These homegrown violent extremist subjects can be radicalized online and support a rogues gallery, if you will, of ideologies, sometimes even blending multiple ideologies. Today's ISIS-inspired attacker can be tomorrow's Al-Qaeda-inspired attacker. And we've even seen jumps from the international terrorism side, that ideology, to the domestic terrorism side, as there is no rhyme or reason as to how these folks are being radicalized or why they are being radicalized. When I talk about this threat, I cannot not talk about the use of social media. It's increased the speed,